Reading through the Bible in 1 year. February 22nd, Exodus chapter 5, Luke 8, Job 22, and 1 Corinthians chapter 9. Later, Moses and Aaron went in and said to Pharaoh, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. Let my people go, so that they may hold a festival for me in the wilderness." But Pharaoh responded, who is the Lord? Who is Yahweh that I should obey him by letting Israel go? I don't know the Lord, and besides, I will not let Israel go. They answered, "The God of the Hebrews has met with us. Please let us go on a 3-day trip into the wilderness so that we may sacrifice to the Lord our God, or else he may strike us with plague or sword." The king of Egypt said to them, "Moses and Aaron, why are you causing the people to neglect their work? Get back to work. Get to your labor." Pharaoh also said, "Look, the people of the land are so numerous, and you would stop them from their labor." That day, Pharaoh commanded the overseers of the people, as well as their foremen, don't continue to supply the people with straw for making bricks, as before. They must go and gather the straw for themselves. But require the same quota of bricks from them as they were making before. Do not reduce it, for they are slackers. This is why they are crying out, "Let us go and sacrifice to our God." Impose heavier work on the men. Then they will be occupied with it and not pay attention to these deceptive words. So the overseers and foremen of the people went out and said to them, "This is what Pharaoh says. I am not giving you straw. Go get straw for yourselves wherever you can find it, but there will be no reduction at all in all your workload." So the people scattered throughout the land of Egypt to gather stubble for straw. The overseers insisted, "Finish your assigned work each day, just as you did when the straw was provided." Then the Israelite foremen, whom Pharaoh's slave drivers had set over the people, were beaten and asked, "Why haven't you finished making your prescribed number of bricks yesterday or today, as you did before?" So the Israelite foreman went in and cried for help to Pharaoh. "Why are you treating your servants in this way? No straw has been given to your servants. Yet they say to us, 'Make bricks.' Look, your servants are being beaten, but it is your own people who are at fault." But Pharaoh said, you guys are slackers. Hold on. There's a lot of notes on the side here that are actually really good. It's important to go through. I want to be certain that you get all of these. It's the list of the hardenings of Pharaoh's heart. I didn't realize that I had skipped over this, but I'm going to scroll through them now so you can get them all. There we go. Okay. Now back to the text. So Pharaoh replied, you are slackers. Slackers. This is why you are saying, "Let us go sacrifice to the Lord." Now get back to work. No straw will be given to you, but you must produce the same quantity of bricks. The Israelite foremen saw that they were in trouble when they were told, "You cannot reduce your daily quota of bricks." When they left Pharaoh, they confronted Moses and Aaron, who stood waiting to meet them. "May the Lord take note of you and judge," they said to them, "because you have made us reek to Pharaoh and his officials, putting a sword in their hand to kill us." So Moses went back to the Lord and asked, "Lord, why have you caused trouble for this people? And why did you ever send me? Ever since I went into Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has caused trouble for this people, and you haven't rescued your people at all." Now, the next line is actually the first verse of chapter 6. However, it's important to this part of the story because it's God replying to Moses. And the Lord replied to Moses and said, "Now you will see what I am going to do to Pharaoh. Because of a strong hand, he will let him go, or let them go. Because of a strong hand, he will drive them out of his land." Let's go into Luke chapter 8. Afterward, Jesus was traveling from one town and village to another, preaching and telling the good news of the kingdom of God, and the 12 were with him, and also some women who had been healed of evil spirits and sicknesses. Mary, called Magdalene, 7 demons had come out of her. Joanna, the wife of Chusa, Herod's steward, Susanna, and many others who were supporting them from their possessions. As a large crowd was gathering, and people were coming to Jesus from every town, he said in a parable, a sower went out to sow seed. As he sowed, some seed fell upon the path and it was trampled on, and the birds of the sky devoured it. Other seed fell on the rock, and when it grew up, it withered away since it lacked moisture. Other seed fell among the thorns, and the thorns grew up with it and choked it. Still, other seed fell on good ground, and when it grew up, it produced fruit, 100 times what was sown. As he said this, he called out, "Let anyone who has ears to hear listen." Then his disciples asked him, "What does this parable mean?" So he said, "The secrets of the kingdom of God have been given for you to know, but to the rest of the people, it's in parables, so that," quote, "looking they may not see, and hearing they may not understand," unquote. This is from Isaiah 6, verse 9. This is the meaning of the parable. The seed is the word of God. The seed along the path are those who have heard, and then the devil comes and steals it away, takes away the word from their hearts, so that they may not believe and be saved. And the seed on the rock, well, those are who, when they hear, at first receive it with joy, but they have no root. These believe for a while and then fall away in a time of testing. As for the seed that fell among the thorns, these are those who, when they have heard, they go on their way, but are basically, they again receive it with joy as do the others, but they're choked with worries, riches, and pleasures of life and produce no mature fruit. But the seed in the good ground, these are those who, having heard the word with an honest and good heart, hold on to it, and, by enduring, produce fruit. No one, after lighting a lamp, covers it with a basket or puts it on a bed, or puts it under a bed, but puts it on the lampstand, so that all those who come in may see its light. For nothing is concealed that won't be revealed, and nothing hidden that won't be made known and brought to light. Therefore, take care how you listen. For whoever has, more will be given to him, and whoever does not have, even what he thinks he does have, will be taken away. Then his mother and brothers came to him, but they could not meet with him because of the crowd. And he was told, "Your mother and your brothers are standing outside, wanting to see you." But he, doing what Jesus does and turning things back to the spiritual, replied to them, "My mother and my brothers are those who hear and do the word of God." One day, he and his disciples got into a boat, and he told them, "Let us cross over to the other side of the lake." So they set out. And as they were sailing, he fell asleep. Then a fierce windstorm came down on the lake, and they were being swamped and were in danger. They came and woke him up, saying, "Master, Master, we are going to die." Jesus got up, rebuked the wind and the raging waves, and they ceased, and there was a calm. And he said to them, "Where is your faith?" They were fearful and amazed, asking one another, "Well, who then is this? He commands even the wind and the waves, and they obey him." Then they sailed to the region of the Gerasenes, which is opposite Galilee. When he got out on land, a demon-possessed man from the town met him. For a long time he had worn no clothing and did not stay in a house, but in the tombs. When he saw Jesus, he cried out and fell down before him and said in a loud voice, "What do you have to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, don't torment me." He had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man. Many times it had seized him, and though he was guarded, bound by chains and shackles, he would snap the restraints and be driven by the demon into deserted places. "What is your name?" Jesus asked him. "Legion," he replied, because he had many demons inside him. And they begged him not to banish them, not to banish them. The demons are begging not to be banished into the abyss. A large herd of pigs was there, feeding on the hillside. The demons begged him to permit them to enter the pigs, and he gave them permission. The demons came out of the man and entered the pigs, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and drowned. When the men who tended the pigs saw what had happened, they ran off and reported it in the town and the countryside. Then the people went out to see what had happened, and they came to Jesus and found the man, this terror of a man, whom the demons had departed from, sitting at Jesus' feet, dressed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. Meanwhile, the eyewitnesses reported to them how the demon-possessed man was delivered. Then all of the people in the Gerasene region asked Jesus to leave them, because they were gripped by great fear. So Jesus, getting into the boat, returned. The man from whom the demons had departed begged him earnestly to be with him, to follow him. But he sent him away and said, "No, go back to your home and tell all that God has done for you." And off he went, proclaiming through the town how much Jesus had done for him. Now, he is the only person who Jesus tells to do that to. Everybody else is told to not talk about it or keep their mouth shut. Well, he's not coming back through the Gerasene region again. So it doesn't matter if he tells them, or tells all the people in the area all about Jesus. Jesus tells people not to tell about who he is because he's worried about being able to go through the different regions. That's the main concern. Because again, if everybody knows, then they're all going to flock around him. And it still ends up happening, but he's trying to put it off as long as he can. Verse 40. When Jesus returned, the crowd welcomed him, for they were all expecting him. Just then, a man named Jairus came. He was the leader of the synagogue, and he fell down at Jesus' feet and pleaded with him to come to his house, because he had an only daughter, about 12 years old. She was dying. While he was going, the crowds were nearly crushing him, pushing him in on every side. And a woman suffering from bleeding for 12 years, who had spent all she had on doctors and yet could not be healed by any, approached from behind and just touched the end of his robe. Instantly, her bleeding stopped. "Who touched me?" Jesus asked. When they all denied it, Peter said, "What do you mean? Master, the crowds are hemming you in and pressing against you." "Someone did touch me," Jesus replied. "I know that power has gone out from me." When the woman saw that she was discovered, she came trembling and fell down before Jesus. In the presence of all the people, she declared the reason she had touched him and how she was instantly healed. "Daughter," he said to her, "your faith has saved you. Go in peace." While he was still speaking, someone came from the synagogue leader's house and said, Your daughter is dead. Don't bother the teacher anymore." When Jesus heard it, he answered him, "Don't be afraid. Only believe and she'll be saved." After he came to the house, he let no one enter with him except Peter, John, and James, again the typical three, and the child's father and mother. Everyone was crying and mourning for her, but he said, "Stop crying. She is not dead, but asleep." And they laughed at him because they knew that she had actually died. So he took her by the hand and called out, "Talitha Kumi," or "Child, get up." Her spirit returned and she got up at once. Then he gave orders that she be given something to eat. Her parents were astounded, but he instructed them to tell no one what had happened. Again, see the difference here is because he doesn't want the people to really know who he truly is. Because if everybody knew that he was the Christ of God, then he wouldn't be able to go anywhere at all, because they would constantly throng him wherever he was. All right, let's go on to Job chapter 22. This begins, I believe, 4 chapters. Yep. Of basically his air quotes friends digging into him as they were before. So, this is another long thing. We talked about this before, about how his air quotes friends were probably sent by Satan to torment him, to try to get Job to give some sort of false confession of something that he has done, especially to his friends, but just to God as well, so that they would all know the true reason why God is doing all of these horrible things to him. As I mentioned before, theirs is a practical faith. They believe that if you do good things, then God will only bless you. And if you do bad things, then bad things will fall upon you. And this is a belief a lot of people have, even in our own Christian communities. These things are false. It's true that God will punish you. And if you live a wicked life, you will be punished in this life from the law and other such things. But we can't use that as a view for why things happen. When a child has cancer, do we blame the parents and say that they're wicked people? When a child dies in a car accident, do we say, oh, well, that child must have been particularly heinous in their thought life, and that's why God struck them dead with that Buick? No. We live in a fallen world. We live in a world under the curse, where things like cancer and children dying at a young age, even older people, everybody dies because of the curse. Sometimes bad things happen to who we believe are good people. There is no truly good person. Everybody is judged by God to be to have fallen short of his standard of perfection. So nobody is good. So when God grants to somebody that what we see as good things happening to them, that's not the norm. It's certainly not to be expected. Anyway, so here his friends go on for multiple chapters now. We're going to read through. Coming up with all of these mysterious ideas that they may have, ideas that they've made up out of nothing, to tell Job the things that they're thinking that he must have committed, right? And again, it sounds good. It makes perfect sense to us that well, why would God allow a wicked person to live? Someone who does all of these things that they're assuming he has done. But again, they have no evidence. It's just their minds inventing evil things that they assume that he has done. And we're going to see them in the next few chapters lay all of these supposed crimes upon him, assuming that he's committing all of them. And that is why God is attacking him. Again, these people were sent by Satan. His family is staying away from him, less his wife. Be kind of nice if she had stayed away instead of telling him to curse God and die, but and these friends, they were only real friends while they were silent. But since they've opened their mouth, all that they've done is serve as Satan's emissaries to him, constantly accusing him and trying to get him to second guess himself, to blame himself for what's happening, or to get him to turn on God. Let's begin. Then Eliphaz the Temanite replied, "Can a man be of any use to God? Can even a wise man be of use to him? Does it delight the Almighty if you are righteous? Does he profit if you perfect your behavior? Does he correct you and take you to court because of your piety? Isn't your wickedness abundant? And aren't your iniquities endless?" Again, he's assuming here. "For you took collateral from your brothers without cause. That's a lie. Stripping off their clothes and leaving them naked. He never did this. You gave no water to the thirsty and withheld food from the famished. Again, all of this is made up. While the land belonged to a powerful man and an influential man lived on it, you sent widows away empty-handed. The strength of the fatherless was crushed. Therefore, snares surround you and sudden dread terrifies you. Or darkness, so you cannot see, and a flood of water covers you. Isn't God as high as the heavens? And look at the highest stars, how lofty they are. Yet you say, what does God know? Can he judge through total darkness? Clouds veil him in so that he cannot see as he walks on the circle of the sky. Will you continue on the ancient path that wicked men have walked? Again, he's making these assumptions. He's attacking him, telling him that he's committed horrible crimes against God. They, these wicked men, were all snatched away before their time, and their foundations were washed away by a river. They were the ones who said to God, leave us alone, and what can the Almighty do to us? Here he's quoting Job back to himself. Job had just said that there are many people who say to God, or rather to other people, that they don't care about who God is or anything about God at all, saying that God should leave them alone. Or what can the Almighty do to us? And he said they live long lives and they prosper. They prosper under God's control. God's allowing them to live like that. And now he's turning it around and saying, no. Every person who ever says such a thing, every atheist who would exist, only experiences bad things in their life. Nothing good ever happens to them. This also is a lie. Verse 18, but it was he who filled their houses with good things. The counsel of the wicked is far from me. The righteous see this and rejoice. The innocent mock them, saying, surely our opponents are destroyed, and fire has consumed what they left behind. Come to terms with God and be at peace. See how he's trying to get him to admit to committing all of these sins that he's making up about him? Come to terms with God and be at peace. In this way, good will come to you. Receive instruction from his mouth and place his sayings in your heart. If you return to the Almighty, you will be renewed. If you banish injustice from your tent and consign your gold to the dust, the gold of Ophir, to the stones in the wadis, the Almighty will be your gold and your finest silver. Then you will delight in the Almighty and lift your face up to God. You will pray to him and he will hear you, and you will fulfill your vows. When you make a decision, it will be carried out, and light will shine on your ways. When others are humiliated, you say, lift them up. God will save the humble. He will even rescue the guilty one, who will be rescued by the purity of your hands. Now, Job's going to reply to this tomorrow. But again, all that they're doing is they're continuing to say, no. Bad things only happen to wicked people. And bad things have happened to you. Therefore, you must be a wicked person. And you saw he made up a long list of things that he's accusing him of, not knowing that they're true or whether or not they're true. He's inventing these evil thoughts of these evil things in his mind and applying them to him. Because again, he sees how bad Job has been treated by God. They're all agreeing that God has allowed this to happen to him. But the only thing that they can think of, probably for their own preservation, is that it's only happening to him because he's wicked. So therefore, if they don't do the things that they're assuming he did, well then that bad thing that they're afraid might happen to them won't happen to them. Yep. All right, let's go on to 1 Corinthians chapter 9. Okay. So in the last chapter, um, Paul basically, so he was talking about um, people who have um, a struggle within their hearts, right? It's a direct correlation with people who um, the same type of people who he refers to in Romans 14, where these are people who may not yet understand or may not be freed up by God to live in Christian liberty, um, for things that were offered to idols, meat and that kind of thing, offered to idols. And he said, for the sake of those people, he will never eat meat if it means that he won't have to put anybody into a situation where they might see him, someone who they respect in the Lord, eating in a temple, eating food that was sacrificed to the gods of those temples. And then they might think that they could also do the same, even though it would lead them to violate their conscience and sin against God. So he said that he would be more than willing to never eat meat again. Specifically, he's talking meat offered to idols. He would be more than willing to never do that again, so long as he doesn't accidentally lead somebody to sin. And now, in this chapter, he's going to go through and explain in more detail the fact that he's willing to give up all of these things, whatever it happens to be, for the sake of the elect. Verse 1, am I not free? Am I not an apostle? Have I not seen Jesus our Lord? Are you not my work in the Lord? If I am not an apostle to others, because again, he's being accused by other people of not being a true apostle. If I'm not an apostle to other people, I am at least to you, because you are the seal of my apostleship to the Lord. My defense to those who examine me is this: don't we have the right to eat and drink? Don't we have the right to be accompanied by a believing wife like the other apostles? The Lord's brothers and Cephas, those are the ones he's referring to directly. Cephas being Peter, the first pope. Or do only Barnabas and I have no right to refrain from working? Who serves as a soldier at his own expense? Or who plants a vineyard and does not eat its fruit? Or who shepherds a flock and does not drink the milk from that flock? He's basically saying, look, I have all of the rights to a lot of things that I've chosen to forsake for your sake. Am I saying this from a human perspective? Doesn't the law also say the same thing? For it is written in the law of Moses, do not muzzle an ox while it treads out the grain. Again, that's from Deuteronomy 25, verse 4. Is God, Paul asks, really just concerned about the oxen? Isn't he really saying it for our sake? Yes, this is written for our sake, because he who plows ought to plow in hope, and he who threshes should thresh in hope, both of sharing the crop. So if we, now he's talking about himself as an apostle and as a church planter, have sown spiritual things for you, is it too much if we reap material benefits from you? He's basically saying, look, I had every right that exists to ask for some sort of a salary from you. If others have this right to receive benefits from you, don't we even more, the ones who founded the church with them? Nevertheless, we have not made use of this right. Instead, we endure everything so that we will not hinder the gospel of Christ. He knows that this is something that they may have struggled with, so he chose to forsake that right. Don't you know that those who perform temple services eat the food from the temple? And those who serve at the altar share in the offerings of the altar. In the same way, the Lord has commanded that those who preach the gospel should earn their living by the gospel. For my part, I have used none of these rights, nor have I written these things that they may be applied in my case. For it would be better for me to die than for anyone to deprive me of my boast. For if I preach the gospel, I have no reason to boast, because I'm compelled to preach. And woe to me if I do not preach the gospel. He literally can't keep it inside him. Something comes up, he has to say it. Doesn't matter what it is. Talk to your pastor. They've had the exact same thing happen to them numerous times. It drives my wife nuts when I do it. For if I do this willingly, I have a reward. But if unwillingly, I am entrusted with a commission. Well, then what is my reward? To preach the gospel and to offer it free of charge and not to make full use of my rights in the gospel. Although I am free from all and not a slave to anyone, I have made myself a slave to everyone in order to win more people. To the Jews, I became like a Jew to win Jews. To those under the law, I became like one under the law, though I myself am not under the law, to win those under the law. To those who are without the law, Gentiles, like one without the law, though I am not without God's law, but under the law of Christ, to win those without the law. To the weak, I became weak in order to win the weak. I have become all things to all people, so that by every possible means I may save some. Now I do all of this because of the gospel, so that I may share in the blessings. Don't you know that runners at the stadium all race, but only one receives the prize? So run in such a way as to win the prize. Now, everyone who competes exercises self-control in all things. They do it to receive merely a perishable crown, a perishable wreath, but we, an imperishable crown. So I do not run like one who runs aimlessly, or box like one who beats the air. Instead, I discipline my body and bring it under strict control, so that after preaching to others, I myself will not be disqualified. That's another good reminder for pastors who we've all seen pastors who, when they go out and when they live their lives, they end up disqualifying themselves because of their actions, because they just get loose with it. They don't hold the fear of God in the same sense that they had before. And so because of that, they slip and fall. All right. That is all for today. Yeah. God willing, we'll be back tomorrow. Behold, the word of the Lord.